it is an incredible honor and privilege to be here. And it gives me, PSG has had special role in my heart always. My father went to PSG and my Periapa also went to PSG. And my initial career and foundation and all the steps were laid in PSG when I was very young, around 17 or 18. So, and it's an incredible honor to be here and receive the award in front of my dean, who was then teacher. And so it's a special night and special day. And so I'm very grateful and fortunate and humbled and honored all at the same time. I cannot express my gratitude. It is not an exaggeration if I said that all the foundation, my future career life, was built in PSG. So I would say that I'm very grateful for all that initial incredible amount of education. And PSG taught me not just the supreme education which is needed for me to be a great clinician, but also gave me all the additional skill sets which is needed for me to be a great human being, like leadership qualities and navigating problem solving skills, and also turning stumbling blocks into opportunities. And many of those things I learned in PSG. So I do think that it has molded me into the person that I am. So I'm incredibly grateful for all the faculty and everything they taught me. So that is a very great question. The one thing I always think about it this way. The accessibility to healthcare in US is easier only because you either buy insurance if you can afford it, or if you cannot afford the insurance, the government will help you afford the healthcare. And I'm very passionate about everyone getting healthcare accessibility, and that is one thing. It's not anyone's fault. It is either based on the government policies we have, or maybe because we do have a lot more population compared to US. I do feel that it is unfortunate for many of our own people that they are not able to access to healthcare. And I think if we bring a policy where the government is able to pick up many of, like for example, if someone needs a transplant in US and if they are not able to afford it, the government will pay for their transplant, because they have policies like either Social Security, which is the Medicare, or Medicaid, who will pick up the money for the transplant. And unless we have some kind of a policy, I think it would be very hard for everyone to access healthcare benefits. And every time I come here, that's the one thing I think about, is if there is anything we can do for these people if any, I know we all dream about educating everyone, but we also should dream about accessibility of healthcare for every single human being in India. I think we'll get there, but it'll take some time. And I think it's hard to reduce the healthcare costs for the transplant. The reason being, it's the not just the surgeon's costs. The hospital has to pick up the cost too, and then ICU, the nursing, the anesthesia, and the medication, and the rejection medication. So all of that, I'm not sure how we can reduce those costs. But in US, when we do a transplant, the money is acquired by the hospital. The physicians don't get paid anything for that. But here I know you have to pay every individual who's doing the procedure. So I don't know what are all the things that can be done here to reduce the cost in itself, because it's just a lot of people are involved in the transplant itself. But unless the government pitches in and picks up the tab for the transplant for the people who cannot access healthcare, I don't know how people who cannot afford transplant can get it. ஆக்சுவலி இந்தியாவில் வந்து அமெரிக்காவில் வந்து மெடிக்கல் டூரிசம் பற்றி பேசும்போது லிவிங் டோனர் லிவர் டிரான்ஸ்பிளான்ட் இஸ் வெரி ஃபேமஸ் இன் இந்தியா. இன்ஃபேக்ட் அங்கே அமெரிக்காவில் when they talk about medical tourism, at least in the place where I am from, they usually say இந்தியாவில் வந்து எக்ஸப்ஷனலி கிரேட் ஃபிசிஷியன்ஸ் இருக்காங்க, கிரேட் சர்ஜிக்கலி ட்ரெயின்ட் டாக்டர்ஸ் இருக்காங்க. இஃப் யூ ஆர் கோயிங் டு ட்ரை டு கெட் அ டிரான்ஸ்பிளான்ட், try to get it from our institution சொல்லுவோம் நாங்கள். But if they insist on getting it elsewhere, we usually advise them to go to India, because in Medanta, in Apollo hospitals, they all do an amazing job in transplants. So you usually tell them, because their surgeons here are phenomenally trained, they are fantastic. So we usually tell them that if you are going to get a transplant outside of US, and if you have decided that, the next best place to go to for transplant is India. அப்படி தான் நாங்கள் சொல்கிறோம். ஏன்னா even if for me as a family, the best place I trust for medical care is India. But medical tourism is questionable in some of the other countries. So we don't recommend to our own patients to go anywhere else, because I do not know, especially in China and places like that. So if I have to recommend something, people are recommending India for medical tourism. It is very safe. Look at the physicians and surgeons here. They are phenomenal. They are fantastic. அதனால் and it's affordable for people who are able to pay. So we actually, if one of the patients வந்து என்கிட்ட கேட்டாங்கன்னா, I don't want to get a transplant in US and we would rather go some other place, where would I go? I'm going to tell them to go to India, either Chennai or Hyderabad, Bangalore, or sure, now Coimbatore, because they started doing transplants. They didn't do transplant until last year. Coimbatore, PSG, and I'm definitely going to say that. I have been saying that. Definitely I'm thinking about it. Like I said, my heart is always in India. Even in US, we try to keep the culture as much as I can. We go to temple. We every celebration we celebrate, Pongal to Diwali to Lori to everything we celebrate in India. We try to keep to the culture as much as possible. All our Indian friends, we hang out all the time. Indian culture is very dear and near to my heart. We follow the tradition very dearly. So yeah, definitely, maybe in 5 to 10 years is my plan, because you know, you can't take the India out of my system. My heart is always here. So eventually the plan is to come here to practice. So நான், for example, இந்த மாதிரி டிசீசஸ்லாம் வந்து more and more as a victim, we have become a victim of westernization and modernization. நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, I think several years ago, or several generations ago, we all lived in an extended family, and if anyone had some kind of heartbreak or an issue, வீட்டில் வந்து பெரியம்மா இல்லை தாத்தா பாட்டி, someone would talk to you, or they will listen to you, and you had an opportunity to vent, and there were always people around you to distract. And so I always thought that was a great system we had. இப்போ வந்து யூஎஸ்ல வந்து, if you look, it's more like a nuclear system. People live alone, and that's why they have pets, or they have music therapy or dog therapy. அதெல்லாம் ஏன் ஒர்க் ஆகுதுன்னா, because they don't have companionship or any relationship with anyone for a long time. So there is no trust in anyone. They don't trust anybody. அந்த மாதிரி, because of the globalization, they started living alone, and that has led to depression, anxiety, PTS, like post-traumatic stress disorder. அது வந்து, I'm thinking it's more and more coming to India now too, because of that globalization, it's spreading to all over the world. I do think that the old way is the best way, and that has been proven. It has been proven that people who lived in an extended family lived well, and people who are in a nuclear system living alone have a lot of mental issues. There are good and bad in both places. I try to look at the positive in both. There are great positivity in India. There is a lot of great things in India. There are a lot of great things in US also. So some of the things which worked for me in US is that I can do what for example, I can practice medicine, transplant. There is no societal dominations. No, not like that. No, not in that meaning. For example, there are no pressure by the society on a woman there. Your life is in your hands. You do the best. You work really hard, and you can achieve pinnacle of glory. And it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter whom you know or your connections. You can achieve what you want if you worked hard and put your mind to it. I'm not saying that's not the case here, but being a woman, I think it is slightly easier to practice medicine and reach that position in US as opposed to here, only because you have some obligations as a woman here, which is normal, right? I mean, it's fine. You have to fulfill certain duties, which I'm still doing, but I think as long as you have a supportive family, it's fine. I do have a supportive family, but so there are great positive things there too. You're more independent. You have to do things on your own. You learn to do things on your own. You try to cherish all the positive things from India. So there are good and bad in both places. Right now I'm very happy there, but eventually I would want to come back to US. Come back to India. Come back to India. But I think from my perspective, it has worked well for me, and if I stayed in India, I'm not sure if I would have achieved what I have achieved now, only because of all all the things because of distraction and social obligations. There, you put your mind to it and you work at it and you get it. So I connect with my patients very well. ஆனால் ஃபேஸ்புக் ரிக்வெஸ்ட்லாம் பண்ணாங்கன்னா we have a very strict HIPAA violation, HIPAA policies in US. அதனால் the hospital and the management ask you not to be friends with the Facebook only because it gets muddy a little bit. They start asking questions on the Facebook and you can't ignore it. And if you ignore it, they'll say, I asked you a question and you didn't answer. And if you try to answer very neutrally, and even if there is something there, they can pick up on it. Anga vandu there is physicians are it's like consumer. For example, they are the consumers and we are answerable to them. There's a lot of litigation issues, so you have to be extremely careful. And even though people are very nice, there is like this fine line. So we are not friends with Facebook. And if there is something I said on the Facebook can be used when I apply for a job. So I try not to be on the Facebook. I have a Facebook account, but I don't say anything other than happy birthday. So we try to be extremely professional and not use Facebook much. Or with patients, we do not use, although I connect with my patients very deeply. Yeah, no. They say that the people who are dependent on the social media for their happiness, they have mental issues. That studies have come. People, they because they don't have people to talk to. That's why they are so involved in the social media. So people, anga vandu social media irukravanga, they are very lonely, and they post their own pictures because they have very low self-esteem. And people, we start screening them for depression or other psych behavior or anxiety. Being on social media is one thing, but being addicted to social media is definitely it's a symptom of some underlying. I'm only thinking that it's not healthy because you're not participating in any other activities. You're not playing tennis. Before, like 10 years ago, you come from college, you went and played tennis, and then you came home, then you studied. So now all we see is them, being on the phone, and I don't think, I possibly cannot think that could be helpful. And so I don't know how to stop the trend. And my son is on the phone too, but we try to limit that as much as we can. But I do think that some studies have shown that the people who post their pictures and addicted to social media have some underlying psychological problems. They are uncovering it more and more these days.